from Trevor Kirby, and I know Trevor really well because he's in my life group that I teach over at the Olive Drive campus. And not only is he in it, but he's my backup teacher. And so I love Trevor. There's been many times where he has been able to help me out when I'm sick or gone and teach our life group. Now, not only is he the backup teacher in the Young Families Life Group that I teach at the Olive Drive campus, but he serves in a plethora of other ways. For example, Trevor is one of our awesome table leaders here in the Wednesday evening service. Trevor serves in the kids ministry at the Olive Drive campus. Trevor is one of our marriage mentors, and he's also on our new member dinner team and probably a whole bunch of other things. And so, Trevor, why don't you come on up and let's have a warm Valley Baptist welcome for Trevor Kirby.
Oh man, after an intro like that, I feel like the best thing I could probably do is just leave. It's not going to get any better. Well, good evening, church. There we go. Hey, you're awake. Sorry, I'm a teacher by trade, so it's nice to hear that. Yeah, somebody else. Funny enough, I've actually given my testimony here at Wednesday night before, but it was several years ago is when Brian was first revamping kind of the Wednesday nights. So that's just a quick message to say, I see a lot of faces out there I haven't seen up here yet. So we've made it back to me. Got to get some of you up here next. Isn't that terrible? One mercy of being up here is I don't have to look at my face on the big screen. All right. So if you heard my testimony last time, I'm going to keep some of the same things, so sorry about that if I bore you, but I'm also going to kind of take a new perspective a little bit on it. So about me, I was born to my mom and dad, obviously. But it happened under tough circumstances. So they were not married, it was out of wedlock. I have my father's last name because he convinced my mother to do that because they would eventually get married. And yet, 20 months later, he had married another woman and had another child. My dad actually has 3 sons. We all have different mothers. My oldest brother is 20 years older than me, and my younger brother, like I mentioned earlier, is 20 months younger than me. And so that was kind of the life I was born into. I was often second place child for a lot of that, as I was the child from not wedlock, right? And I had some identity issues with that. And I don't want to go too much into that, but I just didn't really have the presence of a good father. And so a lot of my childhood and a lot of the mistakes I made were from that place of hurt. And so growing up, my mom did the best she could, but I grew up on East Side in a cinder brick house. She just got AC put in this year, amen? In Bakersfield, California, we had a swamp cooler. That was the childhood I had. So, not poor, when you look around the world, but certainly not as well off as a lot of people. And she often had to work 2 jobs until she found her rest of the career job at the post office. And so I grew up, in some tough neighborhoods and through some trials. I know what it's like to see your cars get repossessed. I know what it's like to rush down to PG&E to pay a bill so they don't turn off the lights. I know what it's like to open the fridge and there's nothing in there. That being said, I'm here, right? So this isn't to drag my mom through the mud, but just to kind of paint the picture a little bit. And so I always was looking for more. That's kind of how I spent my life growing up, is I didn't have that father relationship. I felt like everybody had more than me. I'll never forget in junior high being assigned an assignment where we had to type because computers were becoming a thing. I did mine on the typewriter. And I was the only kid in class in that situation. And so I was always looking for more. One way that God has just really provided for me is one of those jobs, when my mom was working 2 jobs, she was delivering pizzas, she was driving school buses for Bakersfield City. And she decided while doing that job, she would never send her own kid to Bakersfield City schools. And if you're on the east side, that's where you go. And so she put me into a private school. And so my family was not Christian, they were American. I think some of you can relate to that. They didn't think Christianity was bad, and if you pressed them on it, they would probably say that they were Christians, but we didn't go to church, and we didn't pray, and didn't read the Bible. But I got put into a Christian school. And so from kinder through 8th, every day I was being ministered to. And that forever changed the course of my life. Through going to school there, I eventually begged and needled and weaseled my way into getting to go to church there on Sundays and Wednesdays. When your mother works for the post office, she doesn't like to give up Sundays because they work Saturdays. So love your postal people. But I did eventually, and it was around that time that I met who is now my wife. This pretty girl, and it was middle school, and kept my eye on her. When we got to high school, we started dating. If you call seeing each other at church and then talking on the telephone through the week is dating. That's what we started doing. It's all that we could do as freshmen. And you heard her testimony last week. Their family, long legacy of Christians. And so from the outside looking in, that was like a goal of mine. I wanted that kind of life. And so continuing to go through church and being ministered to, there was just a few points where I'm not sure an exact moment, but I can think of a couple moments that I really relied on Christ. One was a camp at Hume Lake, and they did the altar call, and I went up with some of my troublemaking friends. We felt really convicted. And so that was a moment, but there was also a moment in high school where we were kind of doing those like teenage lock-in thing, and there's a bunch of different stations and prayer stations. And at this point, my dad hadn't been in my life the last 3 years, not even a phone call, like a birthday card, nothing. And it just hit me, it was heavy. And so I prayed with an adult leader then that I think I want to see my dad again. And so in high school, about sophomore, junior year, I kind of renewed that relationship, and it actually was going really well. I felt like things were really on the up and up. I had a terrible GPA, and I had a very pretty girlfriend who was going to go off to college. And so I started to try to turn my life around there. And that's another thing, is nobody in my family has ever been to college. I followed mine to college because I knew she'd find better if I didn't.
You got that right?
Plain and simple. I mean, you guys saw her. Hashtag married up. So, that is another way in which God provided for me. And so she was up here telling you guys her testimony was maybe boring or didn't feel like a testimony. But that family's testimony has blessed me so much. It got me to college. It got me here. Who knows where I'd be otherwise. After freshman year of college, to keep a long story short, I ended up going out on the river with my dad, and he ended up drowning. And it was a really dark place. But some of the first people to greet me after were my girlfriend Sam, my wife, and my in-laws. I remember my future father-in-law taking me out bowling with him and his sons after it happened, trying to take care of me and looking in on me. And so, like I said, just richly blessed by them and their legacy and their heritage. And it wasn't too long after that that I really started to get like the PTSD and anxiety. And it was so hard to go through college when I literally thought I was dying. I went to the hospital multiple times. I thought I was dying because the symptoms were so bad. And a lot of times when people are up here giving their testimony, they're victorious. They're telling you what God has already brought them through. And I wish I could tell you the same with my story, but I'm telling you right now, I'm in the middle of it now. That just before coming up here, my palms were sweaty, and the enemy didn't want me up here. That lately I've been so anxious, it's been hard to get to church. And so sometimes you might see me walking in the lobby, or at all drives, I'll do laps. I won't leave the church. I won't give the enemy that foothold. And so, as much as God has provided for me and continues to do so, I still need help. I still need prayer. I still need love. And I just want to reiterate that my wife's testimony that I grew up in the church and had a legacy, that's the testimony. It's what I want for my 4 kids. What a testimony of God being faithful to his people as you hand off the baton. And so as a teacher, as a husband, as a father, I encourage you, other parents out there, that your greatest mission to your kids isn't their education, it's not their health, it's their discipleship. Because wouldn't it be nice if everybody had that testimony instead of the ones that a lot of us have? Thank you, church.
Thank you, Trevor, for that courageous, transparent testimony. I know